When I invited him to come tonight, he said he already voted and he had left the school district blank. What can I tell him to convince him to vote for school board in the general election?
So I would tell him that our schools are important, that our students are our future community members, our future leaders of our community, and we need to make sure that we're ensuring a quality board that are making decisions for those children's education.
Thank you. Next.
Two things. Every time I hear somebody who says, I don't have students in the district, I'm not going to vote, it doesn't really matter to me, I tell them, well, someday when I'm older, I sure want a well-educated person who's gone through a good public education to take care of me. And then they go, okay, that's a good point. The other thing is that we are stewards of the tax dollars, and we need to make sure that we're transparent to the taxpayers and that we're taking good care of their property tax dollars and their other tax dollars.
I would have to agree with Julie on that everybody that pays into our education should want to decide who is in charge of those. I'm also pretty surprised that a college professor and administrator thought that it wasn't important to vote on school board, but to each his own, I guess.
I agree that is weird that they wouldn't want to vote, and I was going to bring up the tax information as well, because if you don't have a student in there, you're still involved in that way.
Okay. So let's start down at this end again. How will the board, or how does the board balance the funding of its programs once taxpayers have voted in, a certain amount of money for the board?
So how
do they balance funding the different district programs?
So how I'm not on the board currently, but I know that our programs are important, that having those conversations with our community and with our teachers to make sure that we're putting our money into the programs and supports necessary for our kids to have a quality education, and making sure that's implemented into our classrooms.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a large district. We have a lot of employees. We're the third largest employer in Clark County. We have to take care of our employees, which is 75% of our budget is in the classroom in teaching and learning. We have one of the lowest administration costs in the entire state. We have a huge transportation department that's extremely efficient, and we have to take really good care of our buildings and our maintenance. And it's a big task, but our district has done it very well.
Thank you.
I would, say, having not really delved into the budget, but I think the biggest needs would need to be taken care of, obviously paying the staff and administrators of the entire district to ensure that we're providing our students with the education they need, and then the highest needs, whether that be the equity and access or those kind of programs.
I know when the recession happened that they prioritized the staff members and made sure they didn't cut anybody with ongoing contracts and then not being on the board before. I imagine you prioritize things based on how important they are for the students and for everybody, and then you work down the list and make changes as needed.
Thanks. The issue of homelessness and adequate child nutrition has not been specifically discussed, but it affects good education, although it should not be the direct responsibility of the school system. What are your thoughts on this?
Down here.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, okay, Janelle.
I know that our FCRCs help a lot in that department with making sure kids aren't going hungry, and if the other needs besides dietary needs, clothing needs, shoe needs, resources for their families, and so they can always stop down there and get snacks. And then I believe that the students stay late for programs and stuff. They have, is it called third meal, that they get when they do that.
Jenny?
I've actually heard this quite a bit during this school board race, that it shouldn't be the responsibility of the district, but ultimately if we're not doing it, then who is? It's not fair to send our kids home hungry for the weekend and knowing that they're not going to eat anything for the entire weekend. The partnerships with Share for their backpack programs, those kind of things. Unfortunately, it is the society we live in, and it takes a village, and I think we're all responsible, and we have to do what we can to ensure that our kids are getting fed.
Thank you.
School lunch program is a federal program. I think that we need to meet basic needs of our students. If they're coming to school hungry, if they haven't eaten, we provide breakfast and obviously lunch. And I think those are important programs. We got to make sure our kids' basic needs are met before we can expect them to learn in the classroom. We did introduce the after-school meal program. We even have an elementary for snacks and then a meal program for kids that are participating in after-school tutoring or athletics. And I remember being that high school athlete and being hungry after school, and I think it's a great program that we have in place.
Great, thanks.
And I too really do believe that our schools should be providing and meeting the needs of our students. Our students shouldn't be hungry at school. Our students' basic after-school needs could also be met with more programs, and we could even reach out to more partnerships within the community and help our kids in those ways as well.
Thank you. So this is a question about ACEs, and do you have ideas on how to reach out and help children with high ACEs scores, which is adverse childhood experiences? Jenny, do you want to? I'll just completely surprise you.
Sure.
About ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, new ideas about how to reach out and help the children who have high scores.
So actually, I think currently the district is doing an amazing job working towards closing that gap. I believe it was last year, the district actually coordinated a showing of Paper Tiger, which is a documentary I actually have it written down, discusses the correlation between traumatic experiences and health problems later in life. It showed the price our children are paying for growing up in unsafe environments.
That's it. That, by the way, was shown here also.
Okay.
Okay, Janelle, can you answer that question about ACEs scores?
Okay, so I've been able to delve a little bit more into the ACEs with the Safe Communities Task Force meetings that I go to that deal with youth that are struggling. And I don't know if our counselors have done specific training with that, but I feel like the ones in my kids' school do an amazing job with students that have a wide variance of issues that they're dealing with between families or interrelational and a whole bunch of stuff. I think our counselors are doing great.
Thanks.
It's important. ACEs, high risk, it's high stress, it's toxic. We've done research on it. We know that it affects a child and their learning because of what it does to their brain. I think that through our training, through our staff, and also with the community and the perception that these kids need more support, I think it's really the way to address our kids, and we help them through situations by coaching them, and instead of telling them what they're doing wrong, maybe telling them what they're doing right and getting them more modeling behavior.
Thank you. Okay.
And I really believe in educating our students. I believe that we need to be creating those safe environments and providing those opportunities for students to be able to, have less stress around those things. Even more counselors in our schools could help with that.
Okay, with this next question, I'd like to start with Julie and go in that direction all the way. Okay. Would you consider and/or promote an update to the district dress code, like the one that Portland Public Schools has adopted? You must cover your undergarments and private parts, but stop shaming girls for showing shoulders and legs.
Yeah, well, we have dress codes at all of our schools. I don't think that they're to that strict adherence. I do think that, you know, we are in a learning environment and people should dress appropriately, but I don't know that necessarily their shoulders need to be covered, because I think a tank top is appropriate. Yes. And then actually I've had this conversation with my friend whose daughter's really tall, and she says it's impossible to buy shorts that go to your knees, and I said, well, I buy them, and she's like, that's because you're old and you're a mom. So, so I don't think it needs to be as strict, but I think that there needs to be something in place.
Okay, let me just make sure my reading of that was a little bizarre. They wanted a dress code that just says, you know, cover your undergarments and private parts.
Yeah, I would agree with
And
that.
not shame girls by saying, don't show your shoulders and legs. So they're saying the preferable policy is not to shame them with some kind of rule saying you can't show your legs
So then we
or you
agree with
can't show your shoulders. Just have it more like undergarments and private parts.
I'm sorry, but that's really vague, and I would not allow my child to go to school showing any of their undergarments or private parts.
Okay, Janelle?
Same.
Megan?
Dress code is important. No, yeah, well, I mean, just making sure that our kids are covering the appropriate places is perfect.
Okay.
So when I hear that one, I instantly think of the sagging pants and, you know, skimpy
Good.
tops. And so I think the question is whether you would support an update to the current dress code or if it's going to look that recently.
So raise your hand if you think that the policy should be looked at again. Okay. Next, how should the school district advocate for kids with other local governments, state, and federal government? And let's start with you, Julie. Go to your left.
I know that currently on the school board, we do have a representative that serves in that capacity. I believe they also have and I can't remember the name of them, representatives up at the Capitol that are there to lobby, thank you, lobbyists up at the Capitol to lobby for the needs for the school districts. Your turn.
If you don't have anything to add, just,
No, I don't have anything to add.
okay. Megan?
I do know that we do have a lobbyist on the school board. I do believe that it's an important job for the school board as well to advocate for our schools and our district and make sure the legislature is hearing what we're doing in our schools and how we're helping kids.
Julie?
School directors have to be an advocate for public education. There's no question of that, so we need to do our part. Things that we've done locally and worked with our local city council people is the bus pass program for C-Tran. We've offered that to our students so they have transportation throughout. They can come to places like Furstenberg. They can get to their jobs, and we're actually expanding that now this next year to everybody, and I think it's helped with some of our kids in transition, and it's been a great program. It's a great partnership.
Yeah. If we elect you to the board, how will you seek teacher input for school board decisions and ensure that those who are in the trenches have a voice? Janelle?
I would go talk to the teachers and see how they're feeling about stuff and then bring what they say to the board and just, you know,
How many teachers are there in the district?
a lot. I have that on a paper in my bag if you want me to pull it out.
No, it's just, okay, that's good. And let's go to you, Megan.
Absolutely, I believe communication with our teachers. I believe there's 1,800. There's a lot.
Well, I just meant talk to 1,800 would be difficult.
Right, yes, and it would be. And that is why we have associations in place, and I believe in having open conversations with all bargaining units that help support our kids and provide for their education, the people that are on the front lines.
We do get teacher voice in a variety of ways. We have curriculum committee, we have building leadership committees, we have supply committees. And the teachers have their association to represent them. And teachers have come to me personally. I've gone out when I'm in schools, I talk to teachers and I listen to what they need and we address those things.
Great. Everybody's happy.
You just no?
Oh, okay, Julie. You must. No, do you have an answer to that?
I am a strong believer in open and honest and transparent communication. I know that I have a great relationship with all of the teachers within my children's school, and I would expand that out to all of the different schools. I think that as board members, we need to be present in the schools and make ourselves known and be open and for honest and transparent communication with all teachers and staff.
Next question. Sifton Elementary community has been promised a new school for the past 15 years. Will you commit to fulfilling this need? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you will commit to fulfilling that need. And then starting with Julie, can you explain exactly how you will fulfill this need?
Well, our board is actively looking at a bond measure at the current time, and we have had many discussions about our current construction needs and what schools need to be replaced. Sifton is at the top of that list. I'm not sure exactly what order everything will play out, but I know it's part of that list. I do want to mention my son went to Sifton Elementary. I have great memories of that school. And I remember when we moved to the district, and I said, Sifton is like the oldest building, but it's what's happening on the inside that counts.
Well, yes, although the questioner says, are you aware of the problem that the school's in poor physical condition?
It's one of our oldest buildings, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm in complete support of a bond measure that's coming up, I believe in the spring. I know that they're going to be sending out a questionnaire in the fall for those. And I believe 15 elementary schools are on the docket to be either replaced or upgraded.
And is Sifton first on that list?
I did not get a list. I just got told there was 15. I know that Image is one of them because that was a discussion that I had.
Okay. You're promising a new school, and so you're willing to promote them to the top of the list. Janelle?
I am also in support of the bond that the current board is working on. I feel like it will be good for all of the schools on the list.
Thank you. And thank you.
And yeah, I too support our bonds to help our schools and the buildings of our new schools. I know that Sifton is on the top of the list. I know that there's been rat sightings, radon, rot, and those things, I mean, are not healthy conditions for students or teachers or custodians or any of our staff to be in.
Okay, are you familiar with restorative practices?
Yes.
Everybody raise your hand if you are. And how they might be applied to our district. Give one example, please. We've only got 6 minutes left. Go ahead, Julie.
I'm in favor of restorative practices. I think it kind of goes with the ACEs conversations about helping our kids and coaching them through situations and having discipline when the old traditional way was go to the office or leave school. It's keeping kids in the classroom and it's coaching them through those situations and helping them deal with situations so next time they do it better.
Okay.
It's constructive conflict resolution. It's also promoting positive discipline within our schools.
Janelle?
I like it because it encourages positive behavior as to avoid some of the negative. I feel like if they're promoting the positive behavior with the kids more often, that they'll get it more often because the kids want to please.
So Megan, since you're running to represent teachers' interests, how does it affect the workload on teachers?
I know that Evergreen at the elementary level has PBIS in place, and that's a positive reinforcement system. They also have PBIS rewards, an electronic point system, and all of that just it's wonderful for teacher management, for making sure that, and it goes right along with educating our students on how to be good social learners instead of pushing them out of the classroom.
Thanks. You spoke about the challenges of the first year for free school supplies. I personally know many teachers who were required to spend large amounts on supplies. What is your plan to fix that going forward, and what were the challenges? Now, I think this has been answered, but does anybody have anything to add?
One thing I would add to that is that part of the contract is that teachers have money built in for supplies and for classroom needs. So that'd be one thing I would add to that. However, again, I'm going to reiterate that there was resources and ways for teachers to ask for additional supplies if they needed it.
Okay, and how much additional are teachers paid for supplies?
I couldn't tell you the exact figure, but I know it's in the contract.
Okay. All right.
Can I add one thing
Yes.
real quick on that? The other thing with that is there was some confusion in the beginning of the school supply purchasing, in which the purchase orders cards were not available, and they were having to order through the supply company that the district uses, so they were actually paying a larger amount for the supplies. They weren't able to hit the bargain shopping, and so their money did not go as far as it should have, as well as the counselors in all schools have been informed about the supply closet at the foundation. And we just need to make sure that that information is getting out to the teachers, because honestly, we're about to get even more with our current event.
Okay.
And I do know that a lot of that burden of ordering for our schools were put on our secretaries, and they already had a full plate. So we do need to be looking into that and being more careful about that.
Okay. So that's how you plan to fix it. Okay, in the last 3-4 minutes, for prospective candidates, I have heard that the board opened their summer workshops to all candidates. My question is, how did you work with the current board, and what have you taken away from this opportunity? 30 seconds each, beginning with you.
So I caught wind of the workshops, but I was in California teaching a summer writing camp.
Okay.
And so I wasn't able to attend.
Julie?
Well, I attended all of them as I was an active participant. And I'm excited about what's come out of it. I'm hoping that it's a model that everybody in our community can get excited about.
I actually attended 4 out of the 5 workshops, and actually garnered a great deal of information, as well as the policies that are coming out for the board and some changes that are about to happen for the board. So it was a great insight.
Janelle?
I would have loved to attend. I wasn't able to due to different interviews and different campaign-related things that I had to go to. But I was able to borrow the books that they read from Mr. Steach and go through those before they started this process. So.
All right. Resourceful. All of you have made comments about reaching out to various stakeholders, and also spoke to last year's bargain with the teachers union. In an effort to increase communication and transparency, would you commit to meeting one-on-one with representatives with any of the district's bargaining units? Raise your hand if the answer is yes. So one of the 4 of you will agree to meet one-on-one with representatives of any of the district bargaining units.
I would meet with another board person with me, just for accountability.
Okay. 2 questions left. Thank you. How do you feel about the number of standardized tests that are being required and the amount of importance placed on them? Okay, we have 30 seconds. Let's, okay, Janelle.
I don't like our standardized testing. I don't like when you walk in the room, the teachers are stressed to the max, as well as the students, especially in like 3rd grade. I think that there's got to be a different way to assess the student growth without that unimaginable level of like stress on all sides. I don't like that.
Thank you. Ginny?
Actually, high stakes testing is a huge issue for me. I touched on it a little bit. When my son was in the 3rd grade and was taking the SBACs, he's on an IEP, and he struggles with test taking and didn't know how to type. So things were stacked against him. I think that we need to prepare our students a little bit better for those tests.
I think that we need to have formative assessments. That's a way to reach a child when they're learning. If we recognize it early, we can correct it. A test at the end of the unit or at the end of the year doesn't give us enough information and it's too late. We get the results at the beginning of the next year and we've already passed that child through and it's too late for that.
Yeah, I don't believe that high stakes testing is benefiting student learning. I believe that our classroom assessments that our teachers give to help benefit our kids in, with their instruction and student learning is much better.
Thank you. Could you raise your hand if you are supportive and planning to come in, not just visit, classrooms to see and engage in learning and teaching in action?
I would.
Oh, are we raising hands?
No, just raise your hand.
Yeah, we were raising hands.
Okay. Raise your hand if you are familiar with the new governance model. Okay. That's brand new. That's something I don't know. And then, could you hold up on fingers on both hands? Or I could ask you to clap, but how many Evergreen school board meetings have you attended? Forget it, Julie.
Yeah.
That's it. That was from one of your supporters. Okay, of the other three, how many Evergreen board meetings have you been to?
I've been to one.
One?
5.
5?
I don't know the
A lot.
exact number. Yeah, a lot. Since I've decided I was going to run, I've been going to almost all of them in my village.
It actually
Oh, my
coincides
daughter
with
said
the
15.
executive.
Your daughter said 15?
So
Okay.
if that's wrong.
Ask her to run next.
Yeah. It actually was at the same time as the ESDF executive meeting, so I wasn't able to attend.
So this is kind of a downer to end on, but many teachers feel that there are restrictions on the supplies they can receive. Are there any comments about that? We've talked about numerous
Is that referencing not being able to ask parents when they need stuff? I don't know.
Are we answering that question?
If you want to answer it.
I think all they need to do is ask. If there's a need in the classroom, they need to ask and we'll figure out a way to get it to them.
What is your home number?
I'll give you my home. It's published everywhere. So anyone can call me anytime.
Okay. Please describe your experience working or volunteering in school buildings in the Evergreen District. How many of you have volunteered? Oh dear. I'm very happy. No, I'm very happy that you do. Don't get me wrong. It's just we have 2 more questions. Okay, and prior to deciding to run for school board, this time or previous, were you involved in school district committees? Raise your hand if yes. Before running? Okay, this time around. And community engagement efforts? Anybody? Okay.
I missed it.
Attended board meetings, we just talked about that. How about board work groups?